Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video here at Stealth Tech, and today I'm going to be taking a look at this new NAS that I'm building out of a Lenovo ThinkCentre. Now this is a brand new ThinkCentre that I bought quite some time ago. I just really didn't get around to using it until recently and actually making this video on it. But I will be opening it up in this video. It is the M600T from Lenovo. Like I said, I bought this brand new, but I just never really actually bothered to go through setting it up and everything. It still has the plastic wrap on it even. So I'm going to pop it open and talk about the specs, and then I'm going to do some upgrades on it to make it more worthy for my NAS box. So let's get started. So let's go ahead and take a look at what the inside of this thing looks like. Inside, the first thing you'll notice is this blatantly obvious, gigantic black heatsink in the center of the device. This is actually passive cooling for the built-in Celeron N3050, which is a dual-core, dual-thread CPU running at 1.6 GHz with a base frequency of 1.6 GHz and a max turbo frequency of 2.16 GHz. And I'm going to go ahead and remove it quickly so you guys can see what it looks like underneath. In terms of memory, this thing currently has 4 GB of DDR3L 1600 MHz memory, and a little bit of that memory is going to the integrated graphics, which are just basic Intel HD graphics. This system actually has a 16 GB M.2 boot drive, which I will be keeping in it because that is what I'm going to be installing FreeNAS onto. And if you are unfamiliar, FreeNAS is an online software that basically allows your computer to function as a NAS server. I'll be getting a little more in-depth with that later on. If you guys are interested, I can make a separate video on it. So going ahead and removing this huge and blatantly obvious heat spreader, we have the Celeron itself, which again is a Celeron N3050. It's a very low voltage CPU, I believe. This entire machine runs off of a 65 watt AC power adapter, so there's really not that much power going on inside of this thing. And one thing that I really hate about this unit is the heatsink itself actually is covering up the SATA port, so you won't be able to be installing any internal hard drives without removing the heatsink. And that's something I'll be talking about later when we do our upgrades, because I do end up getting a smaller heatsink for it, and I really think that hinders the performance quite a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and put this thing back together, and then we'll talk about the upgrades I'm going to do, and we'll get going with those. So now let's take a look at the machine itself. On the front, we'll see there are two USB 3.0 ports, a headphone out jack, and a microphone in jack. The design of this thing is one of the reasons why I bought it. It's tiny and it looks absolutely sexy for a NAS box. This thing is the perfect form factor for just about anything you'd want to use it for, including NAS, and quite honestly, I'd prefer to have this thing on my desk than a big desktop, because this thing is just smooth, sleek, and looks absolutely gorgeous in comparison to most of the other alternatives, which tend to be made out of cheap, clunky looking plastic. On the other hand, this thing is made out of wonderfully durable steel, and I'm going to have to give this a 10 out of 10 in terms of build quality. This is the 65 watt power brick that I mentioned earlier. It is just the stock unit that came with the device, and I believe it's the same thing that's used on like the Lenovo ThinkPad X240 series. It's just your standard power brick that came with this device. There's not much special about it, but it gets the job done, and it is more than enough for this. And one of the reasons why I actually bought this box in the first place, because it's going to be running 24/7, and it's extremely energy efficient due to its low voltage CPU. So now that that's all out of the way, let's get into the upgrades and let's get this thing even more powerful than it is. So I'm going to go ahead and time-lapse this entire portion of the video because it is quite boring. It is just me figuring out how to install this upgrade. But basically what we're doing is we're going from the aforementioned 2.16 GHz Celeron N3050 2-core, 2-thread CPU all the way to a Pentium N3700. Now this chip is actually it still has a base clock of 1.6 gigahertz, but this one not only goes to up to 2.4 gigahertz, but it actually has, in addition to being that slightly faster in terms of the clock speed there, it actually includes out of the box 4 cores as opposed to 2 from before. So this is going to give us twice the amount of performance theoretically, and it should greatly improve this computer. In addition, you'll see on the replacement motherboard that I'm going to be upgrading this to, there is actually a smaller heatsink, which is partially because this processor has a TDP of only 6 watts. You heard that right, 6 watts. Your light bulb actually uses, if you're using a normal standard type light bulb, you're actually using 10 times the power to light up that bulb than this entire CPU uses, which in my opinion is pretty darn awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and, well, once I stop being a moron here and actually figure this out, get off the front panel connectors and transfer them over to the new board. So one of the things that I mentioned before is the new board has that smaller gray heatsink as opposed to the big black one, and that is because it's actually designed to be actively cooled with a fan. Only problem is I don't have that fan because I don't know what the FRU number is, so I can't buy one. That said, I will be on the lookout for one because I want to keep this thing running as cool as possible, just because it's going to be running 24/7. But because this heatsink is actually smaller, it allows us to install a full-size 2.5-inch laptop hard drive. And that's what we're going to be installing. I believe I have purchased a 500 gigabyte Toshiba 7200 RPM hard drive, and that's going to be in here, and that's going to be running 24/7 just as a basically an on-site NAS with just some quick YouTube backups, document backups, and movies that I will be able to wirelessly stream throughout the network. And that is because I have the Netgear Orbi internet connection, which is pretty awesome. If you guys want me to do a video on that, comment down below. I will gladly do that. I absolutely love the Orbis, and I'm not sponsored or anything. I just think they're really great products. So, yeah. Now, obviously, my configuration of this machine didn't actually include a 2.5-inch hard drive, so I will have to buy that myself and figure out how to mount it. Now, I don't have any of the official mounting hardware for one of these hard drives, so I'm just going to improvise with this little graphics card HDMI port plug. Actually, I think it's DisplayPort, but anyways, that's going to go ahead and fit in here and give our hard drive a tight, snug fit into the machine, and that'll keep it from bouncing around or putting too much excess force on the actual SATA interface itself, because I want this to last for a very long time, as mentioned previously. Now, after that's done, I'm going to go ahead and reassemble the computer, and let's fire it up and get FreeNAS running. I obviously am not going to be doing a full installation tutorial to FreeNAS because it's a free operating system that you can download and install yourself very easily, but I do want to say that the user interface is one of the best in class, and I absolutely love it. Now, as for the system itself, it's absolutely fluent and everything runs extremely well, as most of what it's doing is behind the scenes just hosting files, so that isn't really much for it, but I can be transferring multiple files to it from my desktop while watching a movie on it through the TV, while doing several other things, and it does not slow down whatsoever. Undoubtedly, an SSD upgrade is an arrangement for the future, or a larger hard drive, but for now, it's absolutely fine and does everything that I need it to do, and some things that I don't need it to do. All of the hardware in this video was completely purchased on my own budget. If you like this video, please support the channel by giving a subscribe or liking this video. Thank you for watching.